Politics of the Ego, a Manifesto for New York Radical Feminists, 1969. Radical feminism recognizes the oppression of women as a fundamental political oppression wherein women are categorized as an inferior class based upon their sex. It is the aim of radical feminism to organize politically to destroy this sex class system. As radical feminists, we recognize that we are engaged in a power struggle with men, and that the agent of our oppression is man insofar as he identifies with and carries out the supremacy privileges of the male role. For while we realize that the liberation of women will ultimately mean the liberation of men from their destructive role as oppressor, we have no illusion that men will welcome his liberation with struggle. Radical feminism is political because it recognizes that a group of individuals, men, have organized together for power over women and that they have set up institutions throughout society to maintain this power. A political power institution is set up for a purpose. We believe that the purpose of male chauvinism is primarily to obtain psychological ego satisfaction, and that only secondarily does this manifest itself in economic relationships. For this reason, we do not believe that capitalism or any other economic system is the cause of female oppression, nor do we believe that female oppression will disappear as a result of a purely economic revolution. The political oppression of women has its own class dynamic, and that dynamic must be understood in terms previously called quote unquote non political, namely, the politics of the ego. Thus, the purpose of the male power group is to fulfill a need. That need is psychological and derives from the supremacist assumptions of the male identity, namely, that the male identity be sustained through its ability to have power over the female ego. Man establishes his quote unquote manhood in direct proportion to his ability to have his ego override women's, and derives his strength and self esteem through this process. This male need, though destructive, is in that sense impersonal. It is not out of a desire to hurt the woman that the man dominates and destroys her. It is out of a need for a sense of power that he necessarily must destroy her ego and make it subservient to his. Hostility to women is a secondary effect. To the degree that a man is not fulfilling his own assumptions of male power, he hates women. Similarly, a man's failure to establish himself supreme among other males, as for example a poor white man, may make him channel his hostility into his relationship with women, since they are one of the few political groups over which he can still exercise power. As women, we are living in a male power structure, and our roles become necessarily a function of men. The services we supply are services to the male ego. We are rewarded according to how well we perform these services. Our skills, our profession, is our ability to be feminine. That is, dainty, sweet, passive, helpless, ever giving, and sexy. In other words, everything to help reassure man that he is primary. If we perform successfully, our skills are rewarded. We quote unquote marry well. We are treated with benevolent paternalism. We are deemed successful women and may even make the quote unquote women's pages. If we do not choose to perform these ego services, but instead assert ourselves as primary to ourselves, we are denied the necessary access to alternatives to express our self assertion. Decision making positions in the various job fields are closed to us. Politics, left, right, or liberal, are barred in other than auxiliary roles. Our creative efforts are a priori judged not serious because we are females. Our day to day lives are judged failures because we have not become quote unquote real women. Rejection is economic in that women's work is underpaid. It is emotional in that we are cut off from human relationships because we choose to reject the submissive female role. We are trapped in an alien system, just as the worker under capitalism is forced to sell his economic services in a system which is set up against his self interest. Sexual institutions. The oppression of women is manifested in particular institutions constructed and maintained to keep women in their place. Among these are the institutions of marriage, motherhood, love, and sexual intercourse. The family unit is incorporated by the above. Through these institutions, the woman is taught to confuse her biological sexual differences with her total human potential. Biology is destiny, she is told. Because she has childbearing capacity, she is told that motherhood and child rearing is her function, not her option. Because she has childbearing capacity, she is told that it is her function to marry and have the man economically maintain her and quote unquote make decisions. Because she has the physical capacity for sexual intercourse, she is told that sexual intercourse too is her function, rather than just a voluntary act which she engages in as an expression of her general humanity. In each case, her sexual difference is rationalized to trap her within it, while the male sexual difference is rationalized to imply an access to all areas of human activity. Love, in the context of an oppressive male female relationship, becomes an emotional cement to justify the dominant submissive relationship. The man, quote unquote, loves the woman who fulfills her submissive ego boosting role. The woman, quote unquote, loves the man she is submitting to. That is, after all, why she, quote unquote, lives for him. Love, magical and systemically unanalyzed, becomes the emotional rationale for the submission of one ego to the other, and it is deemed every woman's natural function to love. Radical feminism believes that the popularized version of love has thus been used politically to cloud and justify an oppressive relationship between men and women, that in reality, there can be no genuine love until the need to control the growth of another is replaced by the love for the growth of another. Learning to become feminine. The process of training women for their female role begins as far back as birth, when a boy child is preferred over a girl child. In her early years, when the basic patterns of her identity are being established, it is reinforced in her that her female role is not a choice, but a fact. Her future will be spent performing the same basic functions as her mother and women before her. Her life is already determined. She is not given the choice of exploring activity toys. Her brothers play astronaut, doctor, scientist, race car driver. She plays little homemaker, future mother, dolls, and nurse, doctor's helper. Her brothers are given activity toys. The world is their future. She is given service toys. She is already learning that her future will be in the maintenance of others. Her ego is repressed at all the times to prepare her for this future submissiveness. She must dress prettily and be clean, speak politely, seek approval, please. Her brothers are allowed to fight, get dirty, be aggressive, and be self-assertive. As she goes through school, she learns that subjects which teach mastery and control over the world, such as science and math, are male subjects. While subjects which teach appearance, maintenance, or sentiments, such as home economics or literature, are female subjects. School counselors will recommend nursing for girls, while they will encourage boys to be doctors. Most of the best colleges will accept only a token sprinkling of women, quota system, regardless of academic abilities. By the time she is of marrying age, she has been prepared on two levels. One, she will realize that alternatives to the traditional female role are both prohibitive and prohibited. Two, she will herself have accepted on some level the assumption about her female role. Internalization. It is not only through denying women human alternatives that men are able to maintain their positions of power. It is politically necessary for any oppressive group to convince the oppressed that they are in fact inferior and therefore deserve their situation. For it is precisely through the destruction of women's egos that they are robbed of their ability to resist. For the sake of our own liberation, we must learn to overcome this damage to ourselves through internalization. We must begin to destroy the notion that we are indeed only servants to the male ego, and must begin to reverse the systemic crushing of women's egos by constructing alternative selves that are healthy, independent, and self assertive. We must, in short, help each other to transfer the ultimate power of judgment about the value of our lives from men to ourselves. It remains for us as women to fully develop a new dialectic of sex class, an analysis of the way in which sexual identity and institutions reinforce one another. A.K. December 1969.